Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today we're going to dive into this topic that in order to manifest more, you actually have to think less. So before we get into that and what I mean by that, and we're going to really dive into it, but before we get into it, I just want to say if you're new here, I'm Katie, and on this channel, we dive into all things manifestation, conscious creation, and really stepping into your power so that you can create the life you desire on purpose. So if that sounds good to you, stick around. So I want to dive into like, what do I mean when I say that in order to manifest more, we have to think less? And I just think it's funny because probably for many of us, we were brought up in a really mind focused way, where just having a lot of thoughts, thinking all the time, planning for the future, rethinking things from the past, always kind of having that like busyness in the mind was almost kind of like celebrated or praised, or it was just kind of the norm, right? And so we became, for many of us, right? And if you're here, you're probably like me. You can probably relate to me in some way, where that's just kind of that was kind of the norm. And maybe you're still somebody that you don't even realize it, but you're still living in this way where like it's a very mind focused way. And when I say mind focused, what I mean is like as opposed to being more being focused, like more in tune with the now moment, being really present, being in touch with your body, being in tune with your energy. And so for many of us, we're at this place now in our life and on our journey where we want to become more in tune with those things. We want to be more present. We crave that now because we were brought up in such a mind focused, doing focused way, right? And so one of the keys I would say to really manifesting more of what you desire is actually being more often in a state of non-thought, being in a state of just nothingness in your mind. And I think for many of us, that can almost feel like triggering or strange because there's a part of us that may sometimes feel like if we're not thinking, we're not being productive. If we're not thinking, if we're not planning, if we're not and the other thing that can happen is sometimes we take these like spiritual practices or teachings or whatever, and we actually then start to overthink them. Like we can actually start to like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be focused on my desire all day, every day. So like I have to just keep thinking about it, or I'm supposed to be manifesting this, or I need to keep visualizing it and thinking about it. And what we can then do is we start to overthink that. And so, ask yourself what the energy is behind that. It's still like this energy of I need to keep going. I need to keep doing. And what's really behind that is an energy of scarcity, lack, not good enough. All of our tendency to overthink, to live in the mind, to be very mind focused comes from this underlying kind of like background energy of scarcity, lack, unworthiness, feeling like we won't be successful if we're not constantly thinking. It's another way of us continuing to just be doing. Um, I often talk about this with clients and within the membership, how you could be resting physically, like you could be laying down, you could be relaxing physically, but if your mind is still going, it's not true rest. You're not getting true rest. Um, and typically what happens is a lot of us kind of like maybe we're brought up in a way where we felt like it was wrong to be resting too much, or maybe, we should, because we think we should always be doing, we should be doing more, we should be being more productive, blah, 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 blah. And so one way we kind of combat that guilt or like that feeling of like, oh gosh, I'm not doing something, this doesn't feel right, is even while we're resting, we're finding a way to still be thinking. So maybe we're resting, but we're still thinking about something. And like I said, it's not even like you have to be planning your to-do list or whatever, but sometimes we literally take these concepts, like these manifestation concepts, and we overthink those. And so you might be resting thinking, okay, well, while I'm here, I might as well just repeat these affirmations and say this and this and this. And as I've said in previous videos, If that feels good to you and you're enjoying it and it feels lighthearted and it does feel like rest. I mean, you guys know the feeling in your body when you're resting. It's like, right? Like it gives you that feeling. Then keep going with it. But you also know what I'm talking about when you can tell you're like forcing it, or you can tell like it feels like, oh, I have to do this. Anytime that there's like a have to or a should, that is, we're out of the flow. We're out of alignment. We're now forcing something. We're still in that mode of doing, going, right? So bringing it back to this idea that think less, manifest more, the less that we are focused in the mind, the less resistance we bring into this now moment. Because what happens is, even if, let's say you've said to yourself, okay, well, I have to do my my manifestation practices, or I have to do my affirmations. A lot of times what can happen too is, even though you're thinking positive thoughts, like you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I am so abundant. I'm so wealthy. Money loves me. Money is so fun. Money is so freeing, blah, blah, blah. You might be thinking these thoughts. Oftentimes what can happen is, even though you're focusing on that, you're also activating the other side of that within you, which is the part of you that feels like you don't have enough money. The part of you that feels like, because why are you even saying those affirmations in the first place, right? You're saying them because that's something you desire. And unless you found a way to get to a place of complete neutrality with where you're currently at on that particular subject, so just using money as an example, unless you've come to a place where you're completely neutral. You have no judgment about where you're currently at. You have no judgment about your current bank account, your current finances. You feel completely at ease, completely neutral, and you're simply repeating these affirmations because it feels good, it feels fun, it feels like something you would love to have more of. Then, unless that's you, then what's happening is you're likely also activating the part of you who doesn't feel that way. Because a lot of us are saying these affirmations or trying to, create these new situations because it's something we feel like we don't have. And many of us haven't actually gotten to the place yet on that topic where we feel completely neutral. So even though we're saying these affirmations and we're practicing these different manifestation practices, whatever, what we don't realize is the more we're thinking about it and the more we're trying to keep thinking about it and more we're trying to keep thinking about it, what we also are activating is that part of us that feels like we don't have it. Because why are you thinking it in the first place? Because you feel like you don't have it and you don't feel good about it. And so sometimes what can happen is, and you might notice this when you're saying your affirmations or doing your practices, you might notice there's a part of you that like comes right to the surface as you're saying them. That's like, no, I don't. No, I don't have this money. No, I don't have this. And so what happens is you're introducing all this resistance in the moment. So the more you're thinking, the more you're having thoughts, even though you're trying to make them positive thoughts, you're also introducing this piece of resistance where then this is what I call it when like, I call it like your energy becomes muddied, your vibration, it all just becomes muddled up. It's muddied, it's muddled up. It's all like tangly. Your vibration is no longer in that open, flowing, aligned state. It's now there's like resistance brought in, and it's like this energy of trying and this energy of forcing, and you're not in that open, flowing state. And so I'm not saying that affirmations are bad. I mean, I definitely recommend them. I do them myself, but it's about you feeling into it. How does it feel in that moment? Does it feel good? Does it feel enjoyable? Does it feel like rest? I'm not saying that all thinking is bad, right? Because sometimes we get a new idea and it's like so fun to think out the details of it and it feels really good. Again, focus on how does it feel. If you're sitting there and your brain like hurts because you're like, can't figure it out. And it's like, then this is a sign that, okay, you're forcing it. You're forcing it. You're not in the flow. If you're thinking in a way that like you're trying to overplan for the future all the time and you're never just in the present moment, then again, you're out of the flow. If you're one of those thinkers that like tends to go back and try to relive the past and almost kind of relive different scenarios and pretend you did them differently or whatever, like, again, you're not in the now moment. You're not in the flow state, because typically what happens is if you're reliving the past, you're typically feeling shame, you're feeling guilt, you're feeling frustrated, you're rebringing up old emotions. Like we're typically not reliving like good moments, right? Or if we are, we're reliving the good moments, which makes us feel bad about the now moment. Or if we're planning for the future, again, we're not in the now moment. We're almost in this energy of anxiety or worry or just trying to like rush into it. So I hope I'm making my point that like when we are overthinking, when we're living in the mind, when we're just in that thinking mode, oftentimes we're muddying up our current energy, our current vibration, our current manifesting power. And so in order to become a more successful manifester, it requires you to simply think less, which again, I think some of us might feel triggered by that or almost kind of judge that because we could see that as being, well, if I think less, like, what am I doing? Like, that feels like I'm not smart or I like, I'll just be doing nothing or, you might kind of have like a judgment around that it feels like it would be too simple or it feels like you would become more like dumb or something if you're not having thoughts, running through your head. But these are just programs. These are just conditions. Like they're not real. If that's you, if you're somebody who, when I say think less, you feel like a weird, like, what? Like that seems wrong. That seems like I would be dumb. That seems like, yeah, you know what? It's, it's just because we have these programs and conditions and it's really like actually the less that you think, the less that you spend time in your mind, the more that you bring your energy back to a state of balance, back to a state of openness, back to a state of like homeostasis, where it just feels like everything's kind of moving in a natural rhythm and you're not bringing in this resistance and you're not bringing in old emotions and you're not bringing in the doubt and the fear and all this stuff. And you're just allowing yourself to be this like open, pure vessel for receiving what you desire. So as you begin to practice living more frequently in a state of non-thought, and just you can do this simply by having moments throughout your day where you just sit and breathe and focus on literally nothing except your breath. Like there's no thought moving through your head. There's nothing really that you're focusing on other than maybe you're breathing or maybe there's a noise outside that's helping to kind of like, because sometimes it can, in the beginning, we might need something to help us kind of get into that state because it is something that might be new for us. So it could be, yeah, a noise that you're focusing on or a humming or, for me, it's just, I'll just focus on the breath, the in breath and the out breath. And, if you do notice a thought, it's about not judging it or not making it wrong, but just continuing to come back to the breath so that you can keep practicing being in that thought of nothingness, of being in that state, sorry, excuse me, being in that state of nothingness, of non-thought more and more and more until it feels more normal to you and you're just there more often. You're just existing in that space more often. And you will be amazed to notice how things just start to flow to you. And like this is where you literally get to a space where things are just coming to you and you didn't have to try. And it genuinely feels like you didn't have to try because once you stop that over efforting in the mind, all of that energy that kind of felt like trying or forcing or hustling or having to do it, it goes away because a lot of the times why we feel like we had to try so hard wasn't necessarily because of like all the things we had to physically do. It's because of the mental stress of all like the thoughts and the thinking and like the uncomfortable emotions and states of being that we conjured up from all those thoughts, from all the thinking, from all the like mind chatter. It's not actually like the physical doing that made us feel exhausted or overexerted. A lot of the time it's like all the mental space that was taking up. And so that's why it feels like things try hard. So the more that you just practice non-thought, practice coming back to a space of less thought, of thinking less, you will manifest more and you will be amazed at how it feels like you didn't even have to try. So I think we're going to leave it off here for today. I do feel like maybe there'll be more videos on this topic coming. Like I said, this is just something that you have to just practice on your own. If it feels difficult or weird at first, just keep practicing it and you'll be able to get a lot more comfortable with it. And like I said, come back to the comments. I feel like, there's going to come a day where all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, oh yeah, the less that I'm thinking and the less that I'm over analyzing and yeah, just putting any thought into this, the more things just come to me. And that's because it's meant to be easy. This is all meant to be easy. It's not meant to feel like a struggle. It's not meant to feel hard. It's not meant to feel like we have to over effort or over exert, whether that be physically or mentally. But we have to be the ones to take the initiative to put that actually into practice. Like you can hear these concepts of like, okay, yeah, it's supposed to be easier. It's supposed to be this, but you're the one that then has to start, okay, like I actually have, then that means I have to actually put this into practice. Like it's nice to hear and it feels good to hear, but then it's up to you to put it into practice by doing the thing that maybe seems odd or off or even feels a little bit scary at first, to just like stop thinking as much. And, because there's these fears, am I going to still be productive? Am I going to still be successful if I'm not constantly thinking about this or that, or if I'm not planning for the future, will I know what to do, or da 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 da. And it's up to you to just take the plunge and start practicing this and just start seeing for yourself. I'll give you guys one quick example before I end this video, which is that even before recording this, I knew that I wanted to kind of talk about this idea, but I wasn't sure what angle to approach it from, or really like what to cover in it. And at first I was like having all these different thoughts and I was like trying to plan for it. And then I was like, no, you know what? I'm just going to practice exactly what I'm talking about in this video. And I just took a few breaths and sat for a few moments. Maybe it was a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes, where I just breathed and there was no thought. I didn't try to think about it, because normally that would have been my go-to is, okay, maybe I'm going to get into a physically relaxed state, but while I'm sitting here, I'm going to start to try to like brainstorm ideas. But instead I was like, I'm going to practice exactly what I'm saying. So I just had no thought. And then out of the blue, out of the blue, out of nowhere, it came, like I saw the title for this video. I felt exactly, I was like, oh, I get it now. The title just coming in was like, okay, yep. Knowing that title, I know exactly the angle to approach this from. I know exactly how to talk about it. And it just like came in, but not because I was thinking about it, I was planning for it, I had scripted it all out, nothing like that. It was just that for a few minutes I sat, I let it completely go. I let everything go. I didn't think about anything. I just breathed and I did nothing, and it came to me. This is how you can experience that feeling of doing less and receiving more. Thinking less and manifesting more. All right. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what you want me to dive more into. I feel like this one could come with some questions or people wanting to learn more. So please let me know. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to work with me more, whether that be one-on-one or through the membership, all of the links you need are down below. So other than that, I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.